different
Correct.
facts.
It's always been an issue. It's just that they just.
But what
now the
James,
gap
what's,
though
what's
is that where you price that gap and you put metrics around what
Yeah.
a affordability crisis is.
Sorry, I wasn't denying. I'm just saying this has always been an issue.
So the way I look at it is this, right? Like, you go first because I have a question for you.
Yeah, but it's almost a smokes and mirrors facade, right? Because yes, this has always been the way, and the average person just has one home, right? The majority of people have one home. Where there's not, Eric is in the top 1% of people in Australia that are acquiring multiple homes. Okay, so the average person has one home. So the average person, they bought their home for 200,000. The boomer bought the home for 200,000. Now it's 2 million. But all they've done is keep pace with the cost of living and inflation. Haven't outperformed it, right? So Eric's outperformed it because he's been able to manufacture growth through his property developments and by buying smart. Eric has outperformed it because he's using intelligent leverage, right? Yeah. But the average person doesn't outperform it. So they're selling you this great Australian dream to own your home. And yes, that's better than not having a home because you're just going backwards. You don't own a home. But the great Australian dream is to stay level with inflation. That's not a very good dream, in my opinion. And that's why we talk about these ways to add value through property or to buy Bitcoin or to do e-commerce or whatever, because we want you to outpace that money printing. I mean, that's optimization, right?
I got a question for each one of you, and I'll answer mine first. And the question is, we've sat here and talked about the problem for the last half an hour. So if people want to get into the property market, right, if that, in your opinion, if that's a market that you would get into or not, what should they do? So in my mind is you could sit there and say, I can't afford it. I'm priced out of the market. I'll never be able to, own my own home. Get that thought of owning your own home, out of your mind, right? Use it as a vehicle to generate cash flow, to do whatever you want with. So what I would be doing is, if I'm on 100 grand a year, right, and I can't afford a property, and my friend's on 100 grand a year and they can't afford their property, and another friend's, on 100 grand a year and can't afford a property, collaborate, right? Work together, sign up for, Unemployable Property on the Facebook group, buy a property course. Like there's hundreds of them out there. Learn how to manufacture equity in property, rather than going, I'm just going to buy a unit and I'm going to hold on to it and I'm just going to pay the interest on it. And like my parents did over 35 years and pay double the amount of interest than what the actual property is worth over 30 years time. Like Mark said, you're not outpacing the market. You're just staying with the market. Try to outpace the market and manufacture equity and collaborate in doing so. Because let me tell you, if there's 3 people and there's 300 grand a year in income and you're going to collaborate on a property, someone might have a little bit more money. The other guy has no deposit. This guy saves a shit ton of money. Collaborate together, work it amongst yourselves. Just get in the market, do something, right? And look at it as a business rather than, I'm never going to be able to own my own property again. Because the reality is, someone that's on an average wage will never be able to save their way to owning a property and a deposit, because you will just miss out every time. You'll save up 100 grand, and guess what? You now need 150. You'll save up to 150. Guess what? You now need 200, and that is unrealistic. So collaborate together and learn. There's so much information. Like you've got so many people out there, these buyers agents that are putting out some amazing content as well. We're doing amazing with Unemployable Property, but there's guys like Jack Henderson, right, that's putting out amazing content. Right. I in my opinion, from a buyer's agency point of view, and giving you guys helps and tips. So James, Mark, Adam, for the person that's listening to this going, yeah, well done. You just sold your $7 million unit that you've doubled in price, and your factories and this and that. Right. And Mark, you've sold 3,000 blocks of land. So you're part of the problem anyways, because you were the one making 30 grand a pop on all of those. Right. Everyone's going to sit there and have that headspace. And I honestly, I do feel sorry for a lot of people, right? The people like teachers and nurses that are on average incomes that are like, this is not fair. If you're talking to them, what is your opinion? Mark, you start.
I'll go.
You
take this one first, because then Adam and like Mark's had a big, we'll call it 180 in his life in the last 4 or 5 years. So I can probably talk a bit more to that. and Adam also. But I mean, we've actually had this same question probably about 5 or 6 months ago on the pod. It was asked what we do. And again, I'll just education, been around the network of people, idea, capital, execution, it's under the hat. And Adam will probably talk to that as well. But, the community were on a private call last night for the paid property guys. There's guys in there with cash, and there's guys in there for the first time going, how do I get to that guy with the cash? And it's about being educated. I mean, the only reason that we're in the position that we're doing what we're doing, Eric, at the moment, I use that as a specific point in case we wouldn't learn how to do it. I mean, you start off cutting your teeth on something small, move up to larger block, with more risk involved in it, and get educated. But you can sit there and whinge about it, it's certainly not going to be the outcome. So education and proximity, and work out who's got the money, and who's going to do the work, and put a JV together, and that's what we've done. So I mean,
Mark,
that's what I would say. And Mark's
thanks.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the type of person that has decided that it is property, well, actually, let's go back a step. The first thing I'd say is there's a lot of myths out there that are being sold to us, or a lot of propaganda or talking points that are being sold to us, and you got to think, what are they really trying to achieve with that? Like the myth that the dream is to own your own home. Like, I mean, there's so many anecdotes of people that own their own home, and then they're like, what the fuck is this? Is this all there is? I'm locked into a mortgage for 30 years. And when you get there, you realize it. So I'd say let go of those myths. Another myth that we're kind of experiencing at the moment is, that women can do everything. They can raise 3 kids. They can have the perfect body. They can run the e-commerce business, and they can have an investment portfolio. You can do them all, but not at the same time, right? Like you can't be there for kids. And anyway, it's a separate topic, but there's all these macro propaganda lines that are out there. Don't be so quick to just believe what you hear. Question the reality as it's being spoken. If it is, though, if you've decided, you know what, it's not stocks, it's not crypto, it's property, that's where I want to generate wealth, then I would suggest to do what Eric's doing. Or I think the best strategy to cut your teeth, to get started in property and manufacture growth, is to buy a property with an old rundown house where there's room to subdivide the block on the back, right? You obviously need town planners. You obviously need an architect, drafty to make sure that's possible. You need to go and do it in an area where it is possible, but you subdivide the block at the back, you sell off the block at the back, you renovate the block at the front, and then you've got this asset where you've created equity in and above whatever the difference between your mortgage and your deposit is. I think that is like one of the best bread and butter strategies to get started in. And then I would say if it's not property, if it doesn't have to be property, I'd honestly be studying long and hard on what are the things that can outperform that 15% hurdle rate per year that we've been talking about, whether it be investing in companies on the S&P 500 or in the Australian stock market, or Bitcoin or gold, or these things. Explore things that, based on the environment that we're heading into, have the potential to outperform that hurdle rate. And if you're young, if you're in your 20s, you need to be putting all that money that you have into yourself and educating yourself on as many different things as possible to try and work out where your wheelhouse is.
Thanks, Mark.
I'll talk. Your question was specifically property, though, right, Eric? What I would do in property?
Yes. Yeah.
So look, I don't hate Australian real estate. I don't like the underlying direction of where it's all going, right? Like, as I've said, but I'll share a couple of quick stories of because a thing that blocks the average punter sitting there, because I've read the comments. Okay for you, Seppo boy, and okay for you, Bugs Bunny, which they call me, and having all your, like, I get it all day, right? As if it was given to us, right? So if you're sitting there right now and you feel like, you're not going to get on the ladder, and the ladder was pulled up behind the rich and the bus has left, I want you to listen. The first thing you got to understand is that you must get past this idea that you need money to make money in property. That is number one. Everybody who doesn't have money is living in that reality, and they believe that money is at a scarcity. It is not. There is a mountain of money available. The problem is there's a shortage of Australians that want to do anything but pick the lowest hanging fruit. right?
Or think outside the box. My first property was no money down, no deposit.
Correct. And people going, oh yeah, that I can hear them right now, Mark, going, oh, but Mark, that was back then. That's not real today, right? Now listen up. Fuck off with that. That's bullshit, right?